And Diptyka Laurent has been picking out some of the top headlines for us. Hi there, Diptyka.
Hi, Kat.
We're going to start off in the United States, not with Donald Trump. We're coming to him in a bit of a time. But we are starting with another high-profile person, OJ Simpson. Now, his parole hearing is set for this Thursday.
That's right. Is parole the next chapter in the ever-fascinating, never-ending saga of OJ Simpson? That's what the LA Times is asking. It says that the OJ Simpson trial in the 90s was reality TV before reality TV was even a thing. OJ Simpson's demise from a famed football running back to a criminal has gripped America for over 2 decades. He was eventually acquitted of murdering his wife and her friend, but then thrown back into jail about 10 years ago for armed robbery and kidnapping. The LA Times says the O.J. Simpson trial was so important in the 90s because it came at a time of incredible racial tensions. It followed the acquittal of 4 white LAPD officers in the beating death of Rodney King. Anyway, if granted parole, O.J. Simpson could be released as early as this October.
And there's a lot of reporting on this in the American press, we ought to say. Some other publications talking about some other high-profile figures involved in all this.
That's right, because the case was so highly publicized and there were a lot of key figures that emerged, not just O.J. Simpson. One of the most high-profile figures was his lawyer, Robert Kardashian, whose daughters, of course, need no introduction. The USA Today says his family capitalized on his notoriety after Kardashian's death. The lead prosecutor, Marcia Clark, also became well known because she actually became a crime fiction writer and wrote a book about the case. The judge, Lance Ito, used his status for better use. He effected judicial reform, while the sister of O.J. Simpson's wife, she became an activist for domestic violence.
Goodness, it's bringing back so many memories. Like you say, such a high-profile case. It really was like reality TV. We can stay with the United States, but move on to another topic. The Washington Post talking about one of the latest decisions from Donald Trump.
That's right. This is concerning Syria, Kat. He's announced that he'll now phase out the CIA's covert program to train and arm moderate Syrian rebels fighting against Bashar al-Assad in Syria. It was a move long sought by Russia, according to officials, and reflects Trump's interest in finding ways to work with Moscow in trying to end the Syrian conflict. The Post says that even those who were skeptical about the program's long-term value viewed it as a key bargaining chip in negotiations with Russia, a chip, well, that's now off the table.
And Syria is one of the topics that comes up in an interview that Donald Trump's given to the New York Times inside the Oval Office.
That's right. He's given an interview to 3 New York Times writers talking about a wide range of issues. He talks about this week's failure to vote on replacing Obamacare, to attacking Attorney General Jeff Sessions over his, quote, unfair recusal. Trump also talks about his recent trip to Paris, where he talks about how beautiful the Champs-Élysées is. He also says he has a, quote, great relationship with Emmanuel Macron, and I quote, he says, he's a great guy, smart, strong, loves holding my hand. You can read all about this romance in the New York Times.
What an excellent quote. Well, Donald Trump might have a lot of love for Emmanuel Macron, but the foreign press much more scathing about the French president over this very public spat with France's top military chief who resigned on Wednesday.
He quit in a real fit of anger, really. Pierre de Villiers, who is France's military chief, he quit over military budget cuts. Look at the damning headline from Libération. They call Macron l'adjudant of the French Republic, which really is a very low military grade. The idea here that little Macron is taking on the big military chiefs, as you see him in this picture, arriving on the Champs-Élysées during Bastille Day celebrations, ironically in a military vehicle, which was a departure for a French president. Well, in its editorial, Libération says maybe power is starting to get to Macron's head, or even more worrisome, maybe he's starting to show himself incapable of taking criticism. And this subject is also being discussed in the website Politico, which says Macron is facing a summer of discontent, and they say this is his real first test of his authority at home.
All right, and it's unusual for this kind of thing to come up over the summer, isn't it? But it is spreading out, having echoes around Europe. There's a British newspaper that's talking about how Britain might have something to gain from this spat.
I must say, this is a really audacious article. The Telegraph basically says Britain can take comfort in this spat because it comes at a time when cross-channel relations are difficult in the wake of Brexit negotiations. The paper says, I quote, "If Macron wants to restore French grandeur and give his country some semblance of the role it once played on the world stage, they need Britain to do this." The writer then rather ruthlessly goes on to say we need to recognize, we as the Brits, or they as the Brits, need to recognize and exploit their neighbours' disputes in order to get the best Brexit deal possible.
Goodness me, audacious indeed. All right, finally, we're going to end with another controversy, something slightly different, though. It's an ugly war of words, and it's all centering around one of my childhood heroes, Kermit the Frog.
That's right, one of my childhood heroes too, Kermit the Frog. This really needs a little bit of backstory. So the beloved Muppet has been voiced for the past couple of decades by a man that you see in this picture here, Steve Whitmire. He was unceremoniously fired earlier this month by the Muppet Studio for, quote, unacceptable business conduct. And as a result, Whitmire has been really lashing out in the press. Now, the family of the original Kermit the Frog voice, his name was Jim Henson. He died in 1990. Well, his family, his daughter, have been weighing into the controversy. The New York Daily News says Henson's daughter says her father voiced Kermit as a, quote, good-hearted, compassionate leader. Whitmire turned the lovable amphibian into a bitter, angry, depressed victim. Clearly, Kermit the Frog is the only victim in this saga.
Goodness me. Well, I wonder what voice they're going to come up with next. Hopefully somebody to give Kermit a bit more sunshine back. Thanks very much. Diptyque Laurent there, looking through some of the top articles and analysis in today's international papers. You can find more press reviews on our website, France24.com.